I don't even know the hotel where you'll be staying.
Looks like the Carrs are having dinner with the Kavanaughs. Oh, Calvin Stoner just walked in. I can't believe this. I know everyone in the restaurant.
That isn't so unusual, is it?
Wait a minute. Is this deliberate?
What do you mean?
Yes. It is deliberate. It's a party. It's a surprise farewell party. Why didn't you tell me I'm not dressed properly? Gavin Wiley. I thought he was in prison.
All right, Sid. We're all here.
What's going on here?
Now listen to me. No one here means you any harm. Quite the opposite.
Why is everyone staring at me?
Mike, if you would, please.
Raven, we're here to talk to you about something as important to you as it is to us.
Like what?
We want to tell you a few things we believe you don't know, privately and confidentially.
Did you know about this?
Yes, Raven, I did it. It seemed to me the only way we could get you to listen.
We know that you and Scott are going abroad, so we thought this would be the only chance for us to explain a few things.
What do you know about that? A little private party just to talk to me, huh? Well, I guess I should be flattered.
We hope you'll be patient.
All right. What do you want? Why are you here? And why are you out of prison?
I was let out for the holidays until my trial.
You're not going to be around for that trial, are you, Raven?
The prosecution hasn't called either you or your husband, Raven, because there wasn't sufficient reason. But perhaps if you listen to what we have to say...
Don't you dare interfere with my trip, because I will not allow that.
We have no intention of doing that. But we understand that you're going to be gone for a while.
Yes, the entire winter, I hope.
And while you're gone, a jury may decide to send Gavin Wiley to prison. A decision which may not be fully justified.
But what does that have to do with me? I didn't kill Gunther.
We just want you to listen, Raven.
No! I won't! I'm leaving.
Raven, please.
Yes, please. Don't you see? We need your help.
Raven, I know this looks like some kind of kangaroo court, but I assure you it's nothing of the kind. We're not here to judge you. In fact, we're here to present evidence for you to judge.
Well, that's a switch.
I'm sure you think you know the facts about Gunther's death. You must have read about the details of the shooting.
Yes, I did. I know all that I care to know.
What do you know?
I know the same thing everyone else knows, and that is that Gunther showed up at the dance studio, and she was there, and he decided to have a little fun.
He assaulted me, Raven.
Yeah, well, I wasn't there, so what do I know?
Well, what do you think happened?
I think that he showed up, pulled out a gun, and shot Gunther dead.
I don't think you know even the basic facts, Mrs. Whitney.
Well, he asked me what I thought. Who are you?
Oh, you don't know my law partner, Didi Bannister.
This is really ridiculous. I mean, why are you asking me all these questions? Is it because you can't get me to show up to be a witness?
No, as I said, we are the ones who are testifying, so why don't we start with Jody?
All right. Raven, you're basically right. That's how the whole thing started. When Gunther showed up at the studio and I was there alone with him. Only, it started before that. Because this wasn't the first time he bothered me.
Yes, I know. Gunther was an animal. Of course I know that. But that doesn't mean he deserved to be shot.
Look, I don't want to talk to you about Gunther. I want to talk to you about something Gunther had with him. A pocket watch.
Pocket watch?
Yeah, that's right. A beautiful antique watch on a gold chain.
Did you know that Gunther had that watch?
No. I didn't read about that in the papers, and I usually don't watch the news on television.
We didn't cover that story, Raven. It hadn't been substantiated.
Perhaps that's because it isn't true.
Oh, yes, it is. It's very true. You see, Gunther was boasting about the watch. He said that your husband gave it to him as a reward for loyalty or something like that. He also said that his initials were in it, but they weren't in the proper order. The initials were SGW. I remember that very clearly. And I also remember it played a tune just like a music box. Later, I realized that the initials were your husband's.
There's no doubt about the description, Raven. It was the watch you gave Skylar as a wedding present.
That is impossible because my husband would never have given that watch to Gunther.
Well, it's possible that Gunther may have stolen it, of course.
No, it isn't because Sky had it. I saw it even after Gunther died.
Well, that's the heart of the matter, though, Raven. It wasn't found on Gunther's body. It was gone.
Obviously, someone removed it from the studio before the police arrived. The question is, who?
Should I tell her about Martine?
Yes, Jody.
Oh, God, what does she have to do with all this?
Martine saw the watch, or at least a watch that looked like the one I described.
Yes, she saw it courtesy of her husband, Collier Wells, alias Carlo Crown.
As you know, Collier Wells decided to return everything he had stolen from him. Which is why the watch was back in your bedroom when...
When we broke into your house.
You mean when you tried to rob my house?
No, Raven, we had no intention of robbery. We just wanted to take a good look at that watch again, to make sure it was the one that Jody saw, because we figured it might be able to prove...
Prove what?
that the person who was in that studio before the cops arrived was your husband.
That is insane because my husband was with me. Isn't that right, Geraldine?
He did leave the house, Raven. He received a phone call, said it was a business meeting.
There you see, he was at a business meeting.
Or he may have been at the dance studio retrieving his watch.
You're wrong.
We thought we were wrong for a while. You see, we confronted your husband about the watch. We asked to see it.
And it wasn't the same one. It looked like it, but it played a different tune.
Then why are we going through all of this?
What we're wondering is whether your husband was a couple of jumps ahead of us.
What do you mean?
Which means 2 watches.
If he had purchased another watch, similar to the one you had given him, but one that played a different melody.
You told them.
Raven, I knew nothing about it, any more than you did.
Is it true? Had Skylar bought a second watch?
Yes, my husband bought a second watch. What's wrong with buying a second watch?
There's nothing wrong with it unless he bought it to fool the police.
That's not true.
But it is true, Raven. He bought it from a kindly old jeweler named Hoffman.
Is that name familiar to you, Raven?
Yes?
Raven, we know you've seen both pocket watches, but we think that you've never realized their significance.
Oh, God. You're trying to send my husband to prison.
We are trying to keep Gavin out of prison, don't you see?
It'll work on your dandruff.
What are you doing here?
Good evening, Lillian. How are you tonight?
My name is Mrs. Goodman. Where did you get this Lillian stuff?
I fill out the tax forms, remember?
Yes, well, do me a favor and just keep calling me Mrs. Goodman, okay?
My, we're hostile tonight.
Listen, what are you doing here? Mrs. Kavanaugh's not home.
I know that.
And?
And I thought I'd come by and finish up a report that we started this morning.
Did she know you were going to be here?
Lillian, pardon me, Mrs. Goodman. Did you see an envelope I had on the top of the typewriter here?
I don't go near your desk.
Here it is.
Well, do I have to ask every question twice?
No, Mrs. Kavanaugh does not know I'm here, but she'll be very happy when I have this report typed for her in the morning.
Well, I think you should go.
I beg your pardon?
I know of a very good ear doctor.
There's nothing to worry about, Mrs. Goodman. I'm not going to ransack the place. I'm going to sit here quietly and do my job. Why don't you do the same?
I am the housekeeper here, which means that I live here all the time. You have a place of your own.
You don't trust me, do you?
That's right. I don't.
Well, Mrs. Kavanaugh does.
Yeah, well, she's entirely too trusting, if you ask me.
Well, I'll agree with you there. Especially when it comes to her husband.
Oh, you really think you're cute, don't you?
Let's face it, Mrs. Goodman. Dr. Kavanaugh is having a red-hot affair with his latest patient.
Listen, if you ever, I mean ever, say anything like that to her...
Don't worry, I wouldn't think of it. I mean, someone should, but someone who's a little more motherly. Like you.
Oh, you are really something.
Why don't you do it, Mrs. Goodman? You'd be doing her a favor. You'd be opening her eyes.
I'd really love to open her eyes to you. I'd
Now, Mrs.
Nora.
Goodman.
Spencer?
Yes?
It's Nora. I'm kind of surprised to find you home. I thought this was your night off.
I'm house watching tonight, Nora. I'm all alone.
Well, where's the gang? Out partying, huh? You know how those rich people are.
Well, what do you want, Nora?
I'm kind of surprised that you're alone. I mean, I know that you haven't hired a new maid yet, but where's the cook?
She quit. Tonight.
My, you really have trouble holding on to your help, don't you?
Nora, I'd love to chit-chat with you, but there's someone at the door.
Spencer, please.
What is it?
Why don't you call me sometime? I really get lonely. I mean, I get lonely and scared.
I thought Dracula's daughter wasn't afraid of anything. Goodbye. Well, Detective Tyler, I thought you were in the hospital.
I was. I probably still should be. Hey, I didn't get your flowers.
The Whitneys aren't at home this evening. I'll tell them you called. Good night.
I understand the Whitneys are going to Europe.
That's correct. They didn't get your flowers, by the way. And there's really no point in waiting. They won't be home for some time.
Oh, that's okay, Spencer. If I can't talk to the Whitneys, I'll talk to you. Anything about the Whitneys' itinerary?
No, sir.
Well, didn't Mr. Whitney ask you to help him make the arrangements?
Mr. Whitney likes to handle those things himself.
Frankly, I find that really hard to believe, Spencer.
I'm sorry, sir.
Look, Spencer, the truth is that Mr. Whitney asked you not to give out any information about this trip, right?
It's a honeymoon, Detective.
Yeah, well, I've never been on one of those, but I guess a person would want a little privacy, wouldn't they?
I would think so, yes.
Look, I remember Raven. Mrs. Whitney said something about Switzerland. Am I right about that?
Is this a police matter?
Don't you think that they picked a kind of an unusual time to go on a trip?
Many people consider this the best time of year to go to Switzerland. In fact, my former employer...
Your former employer what?
Mr. Bowie and his wife went on this time of year all the time.
Did you say Mr. Bowie?
I thought you knew everything about me, Detective.
Well, I know that you used to be his bodyguard, but that reminded me of something else.
What's that?
Well, I remember seeing his name in another file. Gunther Wagner used to work for Bowie. Well, you must have known each other.
Yes, sir, I knew him.
That's quite a coincidence, isn't it?
Not at all. I knew Gunther, and that's how I knew that he was working here. When he died, well, the rest is obvious.
If you say so. Spencer, tell me what Gunther was like. I mean, when he really let his hair down.
Gunther had no hair.
You know, Spencer, sometimes I could almost like you.
Well, we weren't close. Gunther was a little too boisterous for my tastes.
I mean, he was a troublemaker.
He liked his fun. Myself, I didn't go in for that brand of humor.
What brand?
Oh, you know, a practical joker.
Oh. Gunther was a practical joker, was he?
Yes.
Like to pull stunts on people and make them a little uncomfortable.
That was his way, yes.
Spencer, did Gunther ever devise a practical joke that would have used blank cartridges?
You'll excuse me, please. What is this?
It's a surprise. I thought that we could have a little party since you're all... Oh, I didn't know your company.
This is Mr. Damian Tyler, Detective Damian Tyler.
Hi. Listen, if you're busy, I'll come back another time, all right?
Wait a minute, miss. Don't I know you from someplace?
No, I don't think so. I'll see you later, Spencer.
She's someone I once knew. I didn't invite her here.
What did you say her name was?
I didn't. It's Nora Fulton.
Nora Fulton. She's the Kavanaugh secretary.
Raven, nobody bothers to cover up anything unless they have something to hide.
If your husband did take that watch from Gunther, he didn't want anyone to know about it.
But it was his own watch. Why shouldn't he try to take something that belongs to him?
But why be so secretive about it? Why go to all that trouble to fool the police?
Mike, there's something else we haven't mentioned yet. It's about Miles.
Yes, I was getting to that. Miles, would you like to say something?
Yes, maybe I should. Raven, you know what happened to me the night that Gunther was shot?
Yes, I know you were injured.
Yes, I was. You also know that your husband doesn't believe that I was injured. He made a public statement to the effect that I was lying, that I maliciously let Gunther bleed to death.
Surely you don't believe that, Raven. You've known Miles far too long.
What does it matter what I believe?
It matters very much, Mrs. Whitney.
Go ahead, Miles. Tell her about it.
Look, Raven, I was right here at the time of the shooting, right here in this restaurant. When Jody came in and told us that Gunther had been shot, I went immediately to the studio. I found Gunther lying on the floor. He'd been shot in the abdomen, but he was still alive. Now, I don't know whether I could have saved him. I can't say that for certain, but he was a robust, healthy man. If I could have stopped the bleeding, if I could have gotten him to the hospital right away, maybe. But I couldn't. Because apparently somebody didn't want me to.
All right, I don't want to hear any more of this.
That somebody was hiding in the studio. That somebody picked up that broken cane and knocked me over the head with it. I was unconscious for about an hour. That was more than enough time for Gunther to bleed his life away.
And you're saying that it was my husband? You all are sitting here saying that my husband's a murderer, and I'm not going to take any more of this slander. I'm not going to stay here any longer. Goodbye, traitor. Have a nice party.
The door's open.
Well, what do you think we accomplished with all this?
Maybe more than we know.
There were three of you working in the Bowie household. You and Gunther Wagner and Nora Fulton.
Staff was even larger. There were 2 more maids, a cook, and a gardener.
Must be nice to have money, huh? It's nice to have friends, too. Were you and Nora friends?
No.
She looked pretty friendly to me.
Well, that's only recent and not mutual.
Look, was Nora hired before or after you were?
Both Nora and Gunther were there when I was hired. They were already having their relationship.
Nora and Gunther were having a relationship? Well, if they were together then, when was Gunther living with a woman named Roxanne?
Nora is Roxanne.
What?
She won't be happy to have people know that, but it's true just the same. Gunther hated the name Nora. He said it sounded like a maid, which of course Nora was.
Oh, she was not a secretary.
No, sir. She was Mrs. Bowie's personal maid. I suppose she may have done some secretarial duties, but not many.
Okay. Look, where did the name Roxanne come from?
Gunther read it in a book.
Are you serious? So Gunther renamed his girlfriend?
Yes, sir. Detective, I hope you won't repeat this story to the Kavanaughs. I wouldn't want to be responsible for Nora losing her job.
Why would Nora lose her job?
And I wouldn't like to lose my own job, which I think might happen if Mr. Whitney knew that I was speaking with you.
Look, Spencer. I'll tell you what, I'll meet Mr. Whitney alone. Why don't you just take off?
Thank you.
Now you're going to arrest him? Oh, God, please, Damian. Don't do it. You're going to spoil everything.
Spoil what?
to go to Switzerland. Please, I want to go with my husband to Switzerland. Please don't do it.
Seems as though a harmony is hard to find. Always on my mind. And frustrated days pass without sight. They